So good to be with you guys for our next devotion time. We are in John chapter 18. There's only a couple more chapters left, 21 chapters in the Gospel of John. So we are coming close to the very end of our series, which will be happening soon. And we'll be soon announcing where we'll be going next. But let's save that for another day. Let's focus on our text today. We actually have quite a bit of scripture. It's chapter 18 all the way up to verse 33. And what's going to happen in verse 33, which will cover this in the actual Sunday sermon time, is Jesus is going to be before Pilate. And it's one of these great moments in Scripture where Jesus is having this conversation to Pilate about truth. So we're kind of like building up to that. And a lot of things that are happening in this chapter today are just kind of the narrative of what has happened this last night, eventually getting Jesus to Pilate. So here's what's going on. They had their Last Supper. They have left that upper room. They are now walking to the Garden of Gethsemane. It's not called that here in John. We see that from the other Gospels, but that's exactly where Jesus is going, where he'll go and he'll pray and he'll tell Peter, John, and James, hey, pray with me. They end up falling asleep, if you're familiar with the story. So we don't see that element or those details in the Gospel of John. What we see is them going to the garden, and this is where now it turns, and Judas is bringing a band of soldiers and some officers and the chief priest and the Pharisees, and they're coming, this is in verse 3, with lanterns and torches and weapons. So peaceful Jesus, who had never caused any problem or issues, except for those times when he's in the temple and he made the whip, and he's whipping and he's moving the money changers out. That's the only time you'll see Jesus doing that. They are bringing like full squad to come get and arrest Jesus. So Judas has turned, the devil has entered into him, and now they're going to go get Jesus basically in the dark, in the garden at night. And eventually they come to him, and Jesus says to them, this group of people, whom do you seek? And they're like, hey, we are here seeking Jesus of Nazareth. So it's dark. They're obviously not able to see too well. Jesus doesn't stand out as in the midst of the other disciples in this moment. Jesus says, I am he. He asks them again. When Jesus says, I am he again, the text says that the people fall back. You would think that would be a great moment right now for them to be like, whoa, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. Not in this gospel, but in the other gospels, we'll also see Judas betray Jesus with a kiss. And so eventually the soldiers are going to take Jesus by force, but Jesus is giving himself readily over to him. But he has one disciple who is very zealous that this will not go down, and that is a guy named Peter. And in verse 10 it says, Simon Peter, having a sword, he drew it, and he struck the high priest's servants and cut off his right ear. Now the servant's name was Malchus. And so Jesus then says to Peter, put away your sword into its sheath. Shall I not drink the cup that the Father has given me? Wow. He is faithfully and obediently going to the place of suffering that he knows about to come to him, Jesus, and he's going to do the will of the Father. And I think this is just such a great example for us, even in our life. We should constantly put forward as Christians the understanding, the mindset that it's exactly what Jesus taught us in that prayer. Not my will be done, but your will be done. And here we see Jesus doing that. Jesus knows what's about to happen, what has to happen. And he's saying, Peter, this is not the time to fight. In fact, in the other Gospels, they'll say, Peter, I could have called a legion of angels here, and we could have stopped this immediately. This is my purpose. So Jesus will then be taken in front of Ananias and Caiaphas. These are the high priests. Caiaphas is actually the high priest in this moment, but his father-in-law, they take to him first. And this is where they have this kind of back and forth discourse, and this is where Jesus will get hit in the face by one of the high priest's officers for what he believes is speaking back to the high priest, but that's actually not what he's doing. Jesus says to them in this moment, because they're questioning him about what he's been teaching, Jesus says, this is verse 20, I have spoken openly to the world. I've always taught in the synagogues and in the temple where all the Jews come together. I have said nothing in secret. Why do you ask me? Ask those who have heard of me, and said to them, they know what I said. So basically, just like everything I've done has been done in public. So why am I being brought at night under these charges? And if I've bared any false witness, Jesus says, about the wrong, but what if I said is right? Why do you strike me? So we already see everybody is hostile to Jesus. This has all been pre-planned. They know exactly what they want to do to him. And this is what we know from the Gospel of John. They have been planning his death for a while. Peter, we'll see in this chapter, will deny Jesus 3 times. And then Jesus is going to be taken eventually from Caiaphas' house to the governor's headquarters. This will be Pontius Pilate. And it's the middle of the night. The Jews can't go in to see Pontius Pilate, so Pontius Pilate has to come out to see them so they wouldn't violate the restrictions of the Passover. They could still take part of it. And Pilate asks him and says to him, why are you bringing to me this man? And they're saying, well, we have problems with him, therefore we have accusations against him. And Pilate's like, guys, handle this yourself. Like, handle this in your law. Like, I know you have all these rules and all these restrictions to temple worship. Like, just handle it like you handle all the other things. And this is what they say. It's not lawful for us to kill him. It's not lawful for us to put Jesus to death. And that had to really have struck Pilate in that moment. Like, oh man, what has this man done to where the Jewish leaders are bringing him to me in the middle of the night? What serious offense has he done where they actually want to kill him? And the Jews couldn't kill him because they're under Roman rule. So if they were to kill, they would be breaking Roman law, and it would cause a whole upheaval. So they have to have it go before Pilate, and they're basically saying, Pilate, this guy, we want to kill. We want him to be dead. And what we're going to see soon is Pilate's going to find out, okay, why? What has Jesus done that would cause such a strict judgment upon him? That part we need to save. So as we close from today, as we see the narrative of Jesus with his disciples, Judas betraying him in front of the 2 high priests, Peter's denial, and then eventually in front of Pilate, we're going to come up with some questions at the end of this video that will just kind of stir you up to think about this moment and hopefully give you some great interactions with those around you as you're studying the Bible with us. I look forward to having you in the message this weekend, because we're going to see such a great, wonderful interaction and a great truth be pulled out of the scriptures, because Pilate's going to ask Jesus, what is truth? I don't want you to miss it. Look forward to seeing you guys on Sunday. God bless you.